Shalom and welcome. This week's Torah portion is BeShalach. It's a very exciting portion. It contains the actual exodus from Egypt, and it contains the story of the crossing of the Sea of Reeds. Now, the Torah tells us a number of things about this, but there's some things that are left out. For example, how did the Israelites get organized when they left Egypt? Torah simply tells us they left. But a large group of people has to have some form of organization. So, here is my interpretation of what may have happened during the Exodus and the crossing of the sea. It's the night that the last plague, the death of the firstborn, is visited upon Egypt. And the Jews are in their homes because they're not supposed to be out and about where they could be killed. And Moses, Aaron, Miriam, and perhaps also Joshua are in the home of Moses' parents, spending the night and doing what God had told them to do in terms of the paschal sacrifice and things of that nature. But at the same time, there's a conversation going on between Moses and Aaron and Miriam and Joshua. And Moses is saying, I've spoken with God, and tomorrow Pharaoh is going to let us all leave Egypt. So many people. So many. Joshua, when we leave, you're going to need to organize the people. Organize them by tribe. Appoint leaders. Make sure they know who to follow. Make sure provision is made for the old and for the children and for the women, especially the women who are pregnant, so that they can travel easily with us. Aaron, you and I will be leading the people. Miriam, we need you to take charge of the women, especially the ones who have special needs. Then come the morning when Pharaoh tells us to get out, which is what God said would happen, we can leave in an orderly fashion. Now, you have to know, we're not going to go by the way of the shore along this great sea. There's too many Phoenician cities, not to mention the Egyptian checkpoints on that road. And God does not want the people to be confronted immediately with fighting a battle, especially with people like the Phoenicians. So we're going to go in a roundabout way, and we're going to cross over into Sinai at the Sea of Reeds. Now, the Egyptians have this track record. Pharaoh lets us go, or says he's going to let us go, and then changes his mind. So we'll have to see what happens. Well, the next day, we know what happens. They're told to leave. So everything gets organized, the people leave, and they do travel along this circuitous route, And they end up camping on the shore of the Sea of Reeds. Well, they've been led by a pillar of fire by night and a pillar of cloud by day. And it's now getting to be evening. And again, Moses, Aaron, Miriam, and Joshua are meeting together because this seems to be an insurmountable obstacle to see. And Joshua has a report. I've just heard from some of the rear guard that they see this huge dust cloud in the distance, and it seems to be following us. It can only be Pharaoh with his heavy chariots. What are we to do now? Pharaoh is coming against us, and we're up against the sea. Moses then tells them, I have again spoken with God. We are going to cross the sea on dry land. The pillar of fire will move to block the Egyptians' way and also conveniently blind them so they will not see us preparing to cross the sea. God has told me what to do. The sea will part, and we will cross on dry land. Now, here again, Joshua, you've got to take charge of these people. We'll have to get across expeditiously, quickly. Aaron, you and I again will lead. Miriam, when we get across, it would be very nice if the women could also celebrate. So why don't you come up with something that the women could celebrate our liberation as well as the men? They went outside the tent, and this strong wind had started to blow. Moses approached the water, held out his staff, as he had been told by God. But nothing seemed to happen. So he started praying to God to find out what he should do. And God answers his prayer. Moses. Yes, God? Moses. Again. Why are you standing there praying? I told you what to do. Go, stand by the sea, lift up your rod, hold it over the sea. The sea will part. Why are you standing here praying when you ought to be over there by the shore? Get thee gone over by the shore. So Moses goes back over by the shore, holds his rod. But then nothing still happens. Finally, one of the Israelites who was in the lead of one of the tribes starts walking into the water. And as he walks into the water, it gets higher and higher and higher. And finally, just before it would cover his head, the water starts to part. And it separates and forms a wall on either side. And the people start going across. And they go quickly because the ground is dry. It's a little damp, but it's dry. The water is on either side. We're even told that if the children got hungry on the way, their mothers would reach into the wall of water and grab a fruit and give it to the children to eat. So they hurried across. And as they get across, looking back, they see Pharaoh's chariots and his army being held off by the pillar of fire. As the last Israelite comes up on the opposite shore, the pillar of fire suddenly goes out. Pharaoh directs his army, the chariots, to go down into the sea. The chariots go into the sea. The going is kind of slow because the chariots don't do well on this ground that's been exposed. They get to the middle of the Sea of Reeds, and the water comes back and covers the Egyptians, leaving Pharaoh on the bank wondering what had just happened. Moses, who'd spent the night writing out some notes for himself, turns around, looks at the scene in front of him, and sings this song about how they have been saved and how the Egyptians were thrown horse and rider into the sea, and how God is so great, greater than all the other gods. And the people sing with him. And then Miriam takes a drum in her hand and leads the women, and they start dancing and singing to celebrate this miraculous event. And so the people were freed, finally, from captivity in Egypt. Well, that's the culmination of the Exodus story. We all know this story keeps going. And we'll see in later weeks how this story develops with the people now wandering around, heading for the mountain of God. Thank you, and shalom.